Okay, so we're going to talk about point-slope form today. It's an equation. It's got slope. We've got our x. We've got our y. Just like the one you've seen already, y equals mx plus b. This time, though, instead of working with the y-intercept, you can work with any point. So we've got the point is going to be x1, y1, and the slope, that's going to be your m. It's the same thing. So, for example, an equation like this would be a line with slope there's your 4, there's your m, there's your m, and it goes through. We don't know what the y-intercept is, no idea yet, but we do know it goes through one other point. And the point is not 5, 3. It's going to be the point 3, 5. Just like usual, the x comes first, then the y. One of the things you want to watch out for always with this is you make sure that you have your x number with the x in the equation and the y number with the y in the equation. This formula looks really complicated, but it's actually the same as the slope formula you already learned. You learned that when you take y minus y over x minus x, that equals slope. What happens? There it goes, sorry. So y minus y over x minus x equals slope. And then, with the magic of algebra, we can change this expression, this equation, by multiplying both sides by x minus x1. Now go away, and we'll end up with exactly the formula you're given. So we're going to do one more example here. Going the other way, if we know our point is, say, 7, let's use a negative, -8, and the slope is 1/2. The new equation is going to be y minus, the y value is -8, so y minus a -8, and slope x minus the x value. Now we're going to change this minus a minus, that's still your plus. Now here comes the really weird part. You're done. It looks like you should still do more work, but this is, in fact, the answer. I don't know why that does that. Sorry. Let's try the next piece. Once again, here's our point, here's our slope. We're going to make this two different versions of an equation for the same line. It's going to be the same line, but the equation is going to look different. The first step, y minus the y value equals the slope times x minus the x value. So that's going to be y minus 2, negative 1/3 x plus 5. Really, really always be careful you get everything in the right spot. The y with the y. Notice how we have a minus, not a plus. Positive 2, but you're going to be subtracting those values in the formula. You don't change anything here, though. The slope stays just the same. Okay, now we're going to use some more magic of algebra and change this into slope-intercept. Remember, slope-intercept needs to be y equals mx plus b. What this means is, when you finish rearranging the equation so y is all alone, you'll have an equation that will have the slope, and magically the y-intercept will also appear. So let's do this. It's not so easy. The first step is, of course, going to be to distribute the negative 1/3. So here we go. Let me get this out of the way. We've got y minus 2 equals negative 1/3 x. Okay, over here we'll think about for a minute 5 times negative 1/3. Put that over 1. We get multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. This is us thinking. So now we've got negative 5/3 here. We're still not done though because we've got this minus 2. I think you know what to do. We're going to add 2 to both sides. It's going to be a little awkward. We've got a fraction and an integer to deal with, but we can cope. Now we're going to think again about what to do with negative 5/3 plus 2. Negative 5 over 3 plus 2 over 1, right? We need a common denominator. So now we have negative 5 over 3 plus 6 over 3. Multiply across the top. Now, hopefully we remember, don't add the denominators, just the numerators. So 6 minus 5 is 1/3. And that's our new answer. So the slope is still negative 1/3. Look at how that stayed all this way the same, but now b is also positive 1/3. Remember, that's b stands for the y-intercept. Okay, now we're going to graph. Let's see what happens. With this new confusing looking point slope equation, you can still graph it without rearranging it. You don't have to get y alone, you can just graph it right like it is. The only thing that happens is, instead of starting at the y-intercept, which you don't know what it is, actually, maybe you do. Instead of starting at the y-intercept, you're going to start at the point that's right there in the equation and go from there. So first we have to figure out what the point is. And it's a little bit tricky because you need to watch out. The x number has to go first. And remember, you change the sign. That was minus, now it's plus. And here, minus a minus, that's got to be, the point is negative 7. Then our slope, we don't do anything to that. That's just going to be the 1/2. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And down 7. 1, 2. So that's our original point. Remember, when you're graphing, you're going to go up and 2. Up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. And so, I don't know if you can hear it, but school just let out and there's a lot of happy people outside. It's Thanksgiving vacation. From here, I absolutely have to have some kind of straight edge to use to connect the dots so I don't have an artistic line but an actual line. So let's see if we can use this. Once you've got about 3 points, you should be able to get a really good graph. I'm going to put your arrows on. You're going to have to write little here to get all of that on, but just like any other time, you do need to label your line with its equation. It's some kind of wonky thing. So that's going from the equation to the graph. Now let's look at going from the graph to the equation. Once again, we're not going to work with the y-intercept. We're going to work with one of the points and the slope. I pick that point. X is 1, y is 3. Then my slope, this time I'm going down 2 and then to the right 3. So the point 1, 3, and the slope so if we want to use the symbols, x sub 1 is 1, y sub 1 is 3, and m equals -2/3. Taking all of that, putting it into an equation. First of all, an equation must have one thing. Always has to have an equals. On the left-hand side, we'll put y minus the y value, which is 3. Then comes the slope, and then in parentheses, and then x minus the x value. There's a special thing though that happens here, and I'm not sure we've got room for it. It turns out that it doesn't matter which point you pick, you'll still get the correct answer. So you can use any point as long as it's on the line. So you can use any point on the line for the equation. What that means is you'll have many possible correct answers. Capitalize my line. It's confusing and hard to believe sometimes, but the further you go in math, the more often this happens, that you can have more than one right answer, and in this case, many, many correct possible answers. So that's point slope.